what does Sonic look like? You literally could have said anything else. Sonic has a really strong design, but a lot of people think the series' current art style isn't using that design to the fullest potential. So why do so many people in the fanbase think this guy looks off, and what are the different criteria that, if reached, would make for the ideal Sonic design? Well, let's focus on that first question to start off with. Ever since Sonic and the Secret Rings, Sonic's design has more or less stayed the same when it comes to the marketing, but is there even a good reason for this? It really feels like consistency for the sake of consistency, not because they really struck the jackpot with a perfect design. Because this model loses a lot of the charm that the previous models had. It feels a lot more stiff. His hands and feet are massive, his limbs don't curve as they used to, his eyes don't flow into the muzzle anymore, and his eyebrows are too small to actually be expressive. Now, you may have noticed that a lot of these nitpicks feel very minor and insubstantial, but I think the reason why a lot of these nitpicks keep showing up is because his design really has a death by 1,000 paper cuts. I know it sounds crazy, but the fact that Sonic's eyes don't flow into his muzzle isn't the complete deal breaker some people make it out to be, but it's the combination of that with all the other issues, as well as the hopelessness for any improvement in the future, that really turns these nitpicks into valid critique. It's also important to mention that it's not just these nitpicks that make the model look bad. There's actually a more substantial reason why this model looks so jarring. As you know, Sonic Unleashed was the first time this model was used during gameplay, but it doesn't actually look bad at all. So then, why does it look so much worse here than here? That question actually has a very simple answer. It's because of a little something that I just made up called, the art style of the game. The Sonic Unleashed model only looked good because it was used correctly in the context of that game's art style. Unleashed was really leaning more towards a Pixar-like aesthetic, with realistic lighting and environments that blend with cartoony character designs. And the model is perfectly constructed with this idea in mind. Like, look at this side by side. I didn't even notice this image was edited! But then, they just kept reusing this model, without ever changing it to fit with the game's art style. The models even had tiny changes over the years to make it even worse, making Sonic shorter, removing any expression from his face, and changing the tone of his fur to be more bland. So now we're at a point where people say, oh, just give Sonic longer quills and make him a bit taller and we'll have the perfect Sonic model. But even then, you'll still end up with the same lifeless Sonic from all the promotional renders. It doesn't fix the core issue, we're just back to where we started. There's only one piece of media out there that uses this design to its fullest potential, and that is Sonic Prime. You can see they did base it off the modern Sonic design, but made small adjustments to it to fit with the show's art style, like giving him more expressive facial movements and changing his fur textures to fit with the aesthetics of the show. But Sonic Prime isn't from Sonic Team, nor is it, well, a game, so we can't really count it as a new in-game Sonic model. So now for the big question. What are all the differences that Sega would have to make in order to come up with the perfect Sonic model? Well, to answer that, we have to go to the very first instance of the modern Sonic model. The 2D promotional illustrations made by Yuji Uekawa. To me, this is the perfect Sonic design. The characters in Uekawa's art always looked bright, colorful, shiny, and just badass. This man can make Sonic look cocky, inviting, snarky, cockily inviting. It just feels the most natural for Sonic as a character to look like this. Out of all the mainline Sonic games, the only one that came closest to something I'm looking for is Heroes. The bright, colorful, shiny textures just couldn't have been a coincidence. You especially see this in the eye texture for these models. Notice the thick black outline and gradient, iconic of Uekawa's art style, and look at the way his arms bend. I would love for them to recreate Uekawa's artwork for the Sonic series into 3D, because there's actually multiple examples out there that show us it could work out really well. We've already seen this happen with Sega Superstars, which used this gem of a model. It's funny how somehow they reserved the best 3D Sonic model for this game. Even fan games like Sonic Onset Adventure have shown that the art style can work, even with higher poly models and more advanced lighting. Notice how the mouth is actually drawn in 2D, and actually changes depending on Sonic's mood. Another great one is by Oreo on Twitter. Look at how well this model works in 3D. These are mostly recreations of existing poses, but I could see this model looking amazing in an in-game cutscene. Now, it says in the script I just have to sort of come up with some cool outro for this video. So, you're not cool if you don't click the video.